Hello and welcome to Secrets Mystery Manor. I'm your host, Psychic Zelda Kelly. Warning: this podcast may contain sensitive material. It is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer and listening discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to Secrets Mystery Manor. My name is Zelda Kelly, and today I have a burning question for you. And that is, have you ever heard of spontaneous combustion? Yes, pun intended. Well, for those of you who have never heard of this, it is when the human body just all of a sudden bursts out into flames, combusts spontaneously. Thus the name spontaneous combustion. Well, there was one lady who actually experienced it, and unfortunately, she did not survive. Her name is Mary Reeser. And on the night of July 1st, 1951, at around 9 o'clock, her son, Richard Reeser Jr., stopped by for a little visit to say goodnight to Mom, hope that she was doing okay, and all that. And so he left, said goodnight to her, kissed her goodbye, and that was the last he had ever seen of her. So the morning of July 2nd, Mary's landlady, Mrs. Carpenter, was going to deliver a telegram to her apartment. Yes, that's still getting telegrams back then. Pretty charming, isn't it? And she noticed that the door handle was hot. It was warm to touch. She called the police. They broke into the apartment and they discovered Mary's remains. Now, this was very baffling because no one actually came in. There was no accelerant. There been a fire that had broken out. Mary was a pile of black human ash. Now, for those who are a little squeamish, you may want to turn it off here, all right? And I think I have dug up a few pictures for you. But you can see that what was left of Mary was a partial of her leg and her skull that shrunk. That's right, her skull shrunk. They said that the heat would have been so hot that it would have been over 1,000 degrees Celsius. Now, that is really something. So, nobody saw any fire, no smoke, no anything in this apartment building. It didn't spread. It was contained in this one area where Mary was sitting. Now, Mary was a smoker. And they thought, well, maybe Mary caught herself on fire. But it wouldn't have burned her to the point where there was literally nothing left of her. Now, is this the first case of this ever happening? No. There was a lady back in 1731, Countess de Bandi of Cesena, Italy. And this happened. It was a very, very similar case to Mary Reeser. This was a noblewoman who basically was just literally consumed by flames. And there was no external source. And it just only left her legs, just like Mary. It only left her legs and a greasy, bad-smelling, sticky substance left behind. Wow. So back to Mary. So there was an investigation. Obviously, an investigation. Now, I want you to know, everyone was called in on this, but everyone was baffled, including the FBI. Yes, the Bureau came in. They wanted to see what was going on, and they investigated this, and there were some detectives that investigated this for years. So where did this happen? Well, right here in the good old US of A, 1200 Cherry Street Northeast in St. Petersburg, Florida. So what really do they think had happened? Sadly, they really don't know. They felt that maybe something had happened to the effect of what was called the wick effect. This was invented, the name was invented by a Dr. Bondison, and he basically described that an unexplainable flame like this would need to have a wick, something to break out, something to just burst into flames, that all it would take is a tiny flame from an external source, like, I don't know, an open pilot flame on a gas burner, a candle, a cigarette, anything like that. And he basically says that the fat in a human body would act like an accelerant, that it would burn. And of course, a person's clothing would act like a candle wick, and that would absorb the fat that was burning from the body, and it would just completely burn parts of some extremities, and some would be just left behind that weren't typically as fatty as other parts. Wow. So, what they're thinking is that the night that this happened with Mary, that she was a smoker. She had a cigarette after her son, Richard, left. And she was sitting near a candle, and she was actually wearing a nightgown that was made of rayon acetate. Ugh, yikes. You know, that is a very, very flammable material. And it could have been enough to burst into flames. Well, here's what happened with Mary. She had to take sleeping pills. So the school of thought was that maybe Mary took a sleeping pill and she had lit a cigarette, and she may have been smoking, and the cigarette, she dropped off to sleep, and the cigarette dropped on her nightgown. And they basically said that maybe she was rendered unconscious, and after taking the pill, she just couldn't wake up enough to save herself. They basically said that she was in her 60s, she weighed 170 pounds, and she just was able to react as quickly as maybe what she could have or should have to save her life. That all sounds very explainable, but I want to get back to the skull business. They basically said that Mary's skull had shrunken to the size of a small cup, like a coffee cup. And this was completely unheard of to anyone. So there was an anthropologist that was brought in. His name was Wilton M. Krogman. He was from the University of Pennsylvania, and he said that a human skull could not shrink when exposed to extreme heat like that, and said that it would take a fire burning in excess of 1,000 degrees Celsius for at least 2 hours to turn human bones into ashes. And it would just be like a typical cremation process. He also said that Mary's skull should have exploded at the level of heat instead of shrinking. And that was the evidence that he had. So what really happened, we don't know. But there have been many, many cases of what is called spontaneous combustion. Could the cigarette have happened to drop on Mary's nightgown, rayon acetate? And believe me, you can bet, when I read this, I checked my clothing. You can bet if I found rayon acetate, and I am not a smoker, but I ain't taking no chances. I don't know about you. But that is something that has baffled humans over the course of hundreds of years. These were just 2 cases. This is very interesting, and if any of you have any comments or anything that you would like to share with us, please comment on this video. We'd also like to have you follow us. I'm Zelda Kelly with Psychic Secrets, and I'd like to thank them also for giving us this platform to bring this and other very mysterious and crazy and paranormal stories that we have in our everyday life. And I want to thank them so much because aside from being, well, maybe this one's a little squeamish, aside from being that, this is a lot of fun, isn't it? So I'm going to bring you more stories like this, but I want to know what you have to think and you have to say about this. Okay, so I've got to say that the whole nightgown theory and the cigarette theory and the sleeping pill theory, okay, well, I buy that. But wow, what's up with that skull? I want to thank you for listening today, and thank you so much for dropping by. We love having you here. And I want to tell you, tonight when you go to bed, think about this. I want to know what you think, okay? And we'll talk very, very soon. And I'm going to bring you some more on Secrets Mystery Manor. You be well and you stay safe. And I'll talk to you very soon. Bye for now. Until next time, thanks so much for listening. I just love this, don't you?